ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا وسندنا ومولانا محمد أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأنزلنا من السماء ماء بقدر فأسكناه في الأرض وإنا على ذهاب به لقادرون صدق الله العظيم. My dear respected brothers, honorable listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, in today's lesson, in regards to the rulings of fiqh, we will first go through the different rulings with regards to jurisprudence, the different rulings that the fuqaha mentioned, and how each tenet of deen, they have split each action of deen up in the various rulings that have come. So, according to the Ahnaf, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he has split up the rulings in the following manner. So we have farz and wajib. They are similar in themselves. Both are to do with enjoining something and instructing to do something. And inshallah we will mention the difference, the subtle differences between the two. After farz and wajib we have sunnah, and sunnah has its various types which we will go through. Then you have mustahab and nafal, and then in the middle, as a neutral sense, you have mubah, and right at the end, opposite side, makruh and haram, which are the forbidding, which forbid us to do certain actions. So beginning with fard. Fard is that which is obligatory. Fard is that which conveys an imperative and binding demand regarding performances of an action. So it's that thing which tells us and instructs us to do something. And for an action to be farz, there are two conditions that it has to meet. The sources which we get these faraid from, they have to meet two conditions. Number one, they have to be qat'i al-thubut. What this means is, qat'i al-thubut means that the source itself, so wherever we get the evidence from, for example, let's take the issue of Salaah. We know ourselves that 5 times a day Salah is farz. Now how did Imam Abu Hanifa, how did the fuqaha come to this? This itself is clear in itself. Why? Because we have clear rulings, clear verses of the Quran which tell us to perform our Salah. Now Quran itself is qat'i al-thubut, is a clear and is an authoritative evidence which has no doubt in it. Everything that is mentioned in the Quran is the most sahih and is the most authoritative text that we have got. So Salah in itself is farz because it meets the first condition of qat'i al-thubut, that the evidence that we get the Salah from is strong and is absolutely authentic. Number 2, now that we have got evidences that are authentic, now we have to look at the words of what is mentioned in that evidence. So whether it is the Quran in itself, every verse of the Quran is authoritative and is absolutely authentic. And when it comes to ahadith, we have different levels of ahadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some, as we know, are strong, some are weak, some are questionable themselves. So when it comes to the ahadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is a certain type of ahadith known as mutawatir ahadith. Mutawatir ahadith is that hadith which in every era there are so many individuals are narrating this hadith that it's impossible for those people to be lying. So there are so many individuals that are mentioning this hadith and narrating this hadith. that it's impossible for them all to come together and lie regarding this hadith. So that is the strongest form of hadith that we have got. So if an evidence comes from the Quran or comes from mutawatir hadith, then it is known as absolutely authentic. Now itself, when we have received these evidences, the evidence itself should be qat'i'ud dalala. What this means is the wording of the evidence, so the wording of the Quran ayah, or the wording of the hadith in itself should be clear. That there should be no chance that this can mean something else. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us to perform our salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the words are clear, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, that perform your salah. There is no other interpretation that can be taken from these verses. Similarly, when it comes to the verses of wudu, the ayatul wudu, that verse which mentions the faraiz of wudu, each and every faraiz of wudu is laid out, and inshallah we will go through the ayatul wudu, we'll break this down in a later stage. Each and every aspect and each and every part of this verse is clear. It is telling us of each and every rukn of wudu. So, those things that are faraiz, they are, number one, the sources have to be authentic, absolutely authentic. So either from the Quran or mutawatir hadith. And number two, the source itself and the wording of the source of the hadith or the Quran, it has to be clear. There can't be any room for interpretation in that verse. Okay. Now what is the ruling of the farz itself? So now we have determined that something is farz. So we have the faraiz of salah, we have the faraiz of wudu, we have the pillars in Islam, the salah, saum, hajj, all these. What is the ruling when it comes to anything that is farz? Number one is absolutely compulsory to perform the action. When something is deemed to be farz, something is deemed to be compulsory, then number one is absolutely compulsory to act upon this and perform that. The one who performs a faraiz act, he will be rewarded. Because he is fulfilling the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is fulfilling what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told him to do so. Now, what is the ruling for that individual who begins to miss his faraiz? Number one, the first thing is he will be sinful for missing the faraiz. So if he starts to miss his salah, he will be sinful for this. If it is the faraiz of salah or the faraiz of wudu, then what he is performing will be incomplete. So whatever he has read, whatever he has performed, that will be incomplete. It will have to be repeated. And number three is that individual who denies something that is farz. So number one thing is, let's take salah. An individual, he knows that salah is farz, but out of laziness he begins to miss his salah. That individual, he will be sinful. He will be deserving of punishment. Then you have that individual who might say that I don't believe in salah. Salah is not a farz of Islam. It's not a tenet of deen. This individual will be out of the fold of Islam. Why? Because whatever is farz, as we have mentioned in the previous slide, whatever is farz, it has come from absolutely authentic sources, either the Quran or mutawatir hadith. Now to deny a verse of the Quran or to deny a mutawatir hadith leads an individual to disbelief, because these are the absolutely authentic evidences that we have in Islam. So these are the rulings of faraiz. Okay, now faraiz itself is split into two categories. Number one is fard ayn. Fard ayn is that which is compulsory on each and every believer. Each and every individual themselves have to perform this act. Salah, zakat, hajj. For those individuals, they have to perform this themselves, and it is a farz on each and every one of them. And if another individual performs it for them, then it will not be completed, it will not be done, and he will still be sinful, and he will have to perform the farz that is upon him. Number two is farz kifaya. It is farz on every single individual, but if a few people from the community perform that farz kifaya act, then it will be done from each and every individual in that community. For example, you have the janazah salah. So this is farz kifaya. If a few people get together, an individual he passes away, a few people they get together and they bury this individual, then this farziyat and this compulsion of burying this individual, this will be done from the whole community. Like this is, we've got the ittiqaf of Ramadan. So if a few people or even one person from that community, he sits for itikaf in that masjid, then the whole neighborhood and that community, their farz kifaya will be done. But the reward will only come to those individuals that are performing that act. The reward will not go to everyone. The farziyat will be done. So they will have nothing on their head. They will not have to do anything again. They will not have to fulfill that farz. But the reward will only be for that individual who is performing the farz kifaya act themselves. Next, we move on to wajib. What is wajib? So wajib is that which is established by a firm command. So from the ahadith and from the sources and the evidences, that which is established and which is given to us as a firm command. And the difference between farz and wajib, according to many of the fuqaha, farz and wajib are the same thing. But Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he differentiates. And he says the farz is different and wajib is different. And there is one difference between them. So we mentioned that for something to be farz, number one, it has to be from an absolutely authentic source. And number two, it has to be clear. For something to be wajib, it has to have one of the two. So either is from an absolutely authentic source, or either is whatever is being told is absolutely clear. So for example, we've got witr. Now witr is wajib. The sources that we have for witr are not absolutely clear. There is room for interpretation. So it might have come from sources that are absolutely authentic, but what is mentioned in those sources and the words that have been used, they might not be clear. So for that reason, we can't put it in the ruling of farz. It will come under the ruling of wajib. Now, for example, we've got in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks on the iddah of a woman whose husband has passed away, or she has been given divorce, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He uses the word ثلاثة قروء. Now quru in itself, so now these words have come from Quran, which we mentioned is an absolutely authentic source. Now quru in itself in Arabic has two definitions, has two meanings. Number one, it means menstrual cycle, or period of menstruation, or it means purity. Now a word that has both interpretations, this word in itself is not clear. So the verse of the Quran is absolutely authentic. There's no doubt about the verse of the Quran, and it's absolutely authentic. But the words Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used in that verse, the word itself is not clear. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were of the opinion, there were both opinions. There were Sahaba radiallahu anhum who were of the opinion that the word quru is used for tuhr, which Imam Abu Hanifa has taken, and there were other Sahaba which were of the opinion that is of menstrual cycle. There were both opinions. Imam Abu Hanifa has taken that is the period of menstruation. So there were both opinions were given. So that's why when there are verses of the Quran or there are hadiths of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam who themselves may be authentic, but the words used in those verses are not clear. There's room for interpretation. We can go either way, one or the other. Then those will come under wajib, and they will not be given the ruling of farz. Now the ruling of wajib is slightly different to farz. Like farz is necessary to perform the actions that are wajib. Those things that have been deemed wajib is necessary for us to perform them. And if we miss anything that is wajib accidentally, then in salah we can do the sajdatul sahwa, the sajda of forgetfulness. But if it is missed intentionally, then we have to repeat our salah again. That salah will not be done. Even if we do sajdatul sahwa at the end and we've missed something intentionally, then we have to repeat that salah because something that was wajib, which was necessary to perform, that was not completed. The one, like first, the one who performs a wajib and he completes a wajib action, he will be rewarded. That individual who misses out something that is wajib, he will be sinful for missing that out. But now this is the difference between farz and wajib. That individual who denies that something is wajib, so he doesn't believe something to be wajib in itself, then that individual, he will be classed as a fasiq, as a sinner. He will be deserving of punishment, but he will not be classed as an individual who is out of the fold of Islam, because this has come through sources which may not be absolutely authentic or which may not be absolutely clear. So we can't put this individual into the ruling that he's out of the fold of Islam. So farz, something that we have to do, the individual who misses a farz, his whole action is incomplete. Whether he's missed it by accident or whether he's done it intentionally, if that action was missed, the whole salah or the whole wudu, whichever action he's doing, that will be incomplete and he will have to do that again. For wajib, there is a chance to do that, to repair that or do the sajdat sahwa at the end, and his action will be complete. Okay, moving on, the next one is sunnah. So sunnah in itself are those actions of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Those actions carried out by Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Sunnah is split up into 3 different categories, and each one has different rulings pertaining to it. The first is sunnah muakkada, the emphasized sunnahs. Number 2 is sunnah ghayr muakkada, the ones that are not as emphasized or are non-emphasized sunnahs. And number 3 is sunan zawaid, which requires a bit more detail, and we will go through that when the slide comes. Okay. Sunnat muakkada are those sunnahs of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or those actions of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, which were done most of the time. They were only left on a couple of occasions for a reason. So Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum would act upon this, would take care and would intentionally act upon these actions, and on rare occasions, on a few occasions for some reason, one or another reason, they missed out also. So these are the sunnah which are emphasized sunnahs. For example, you've got the adhan and the iqamah. This is an example of an emphasized sunnah. So what is the ruling of an emphasized sunnah, a sunnah mu'akkada? Now, what youngsters, what mistake they make is, when they hear the word sunnah, they straight away think that it's something that we can miss out. Now, sunnah, like we are saying, is split into 3 categories. Sunnah mu'akkada, when we're performing a sunnah mu'akkada, if an individual he leaves a sunnah mu'akkada out without a reason, then that individual will be blameworthy. And if he's leaving this sunnah out as a habit and he's thinking to himself, there is only a sunnah so I can leave it out, then that individual will be sinful also. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he mentions in a narration, Man radiba an sunnati falaysa minni, that individual who looks down upon my sunnah or who doesn't give the importance to my sunnah, then that individual is not from my ummah. Then he is not from amongst me. And the ulama mentioned that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he mentioned that individual who does not act upon my sunnahs, that he will not be given the safarish, the intercession of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam on the Day of Judgment. So on the Day of Judgment, just imagine this sight where each and every one of us have been raised on a day like no other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day is angry like never before. The trumpet is blown for the second time, and each and every individual from the time of Adam alayhi salam till the last man, he is resurrected on that day. يُحْشَرُ النَّاسُ عَلَىٰ أَرْضٍ بَيْضَاءٍ, that the whole of humanity will be raised up and will be resurrected on a white plain. There will be nowhere to hide. On that day when the sun will be on our heads, that day will be so frightening that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, narrated by Ka'b Ahbar radiallahu anhu, that day will be so frightening that if an individual had the a'mal and the good deeds of 70 Anbiya alayhimus salam, 70 of the Prophets alayhimus salam, that individual, he will fall on his knees begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his mercy. So that day when each and every one will be running to the Anbiya alayhimus salam, asking them for help. And when they will come to Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he will come in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he will fall into sajda in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a manner that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says that the words that I will use to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will teach me those words on that day. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, Ya Muhammad irfa ra'sak, though Muhammad, raise your head and ask whatever you will ask, you will be given. And then Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will begin to beseech Allah and begin to beg Allah, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati, O Allah my ummat, O Allah my ummat. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, O Muhammad, go into the fire of hell and take out 1/3 of your ummat. 1/3 of your ummat who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who believed in the last day, take them and enter them into paradise. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say to Allah, that, oh Allah, I'm not happy with this. You said, you ask and I will be given whatever I want, I will not be disappointed. And again Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the second time he will fall into sajda. And he will begin to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, begin to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, Ya Muhammad irfa ra'sak. Though Muhammad, raise your head and ask, wasal tu'ta. That ask and you will be given, whatever you wish you will be given. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam will once again begin to beg for this ummah, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati, O Allah my ummah, O Allah my ummah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that, O Muhammad, O my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, go into the fire of hell and take out 2/3 of your ummah. Those from amongst your ummah who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believed in Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, take them and enter them into paradise. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say, I will not be happy with this. And again for the third time Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam will fall into sajda. And for the third time Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and will beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that, O Muhammad, go into the fire of hell and take out your entire ummah and enter them into paradise. This will be the intercession of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that day, where Jahannam will be brought on that day. The narrations mention, وَجِيءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمٍ, that Jahannam will be brought on that day. And this beast will be so fierce and so frightening. The narrations mention that there will be 70,000 chains that will be holding Jahannam. This beast will want to erupt, and there will be 70,000 chains that will be holding this. And on each one of these chains there will be 70,000 angels. This will be that day, and this is when we will need the sifarish and the intercession of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam will fight for this ummah and will argue and will be begging for this ummah to such a stage. The Malik, the keeper of Jahannam, the guardian angel of Jahannam will say that, Ya Muhammad, ما تركت لغضب ربك على أمتك من لقمة. That you have not let the chance of the anger of your Lord, that you have not left any chance for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be angry upon your ummah. Now those individuals that did not act upon the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they heard the word sunnah and they thought that this is okay for me to leave out, those individuals, what will happen to them when we face Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam? When we come and stand in front of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and we have gone against the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Nabi who sacrificed everything for this ummah. Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha, she mentions that there would be nights when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be tossing and turning. He would be tossing and turning from side to side, he would not be able to sleep. And he would not have eaten for so many days. And I would say to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam that ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he will give you from his bounties. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he chose hunger. He wanted hunger, why? Because he wanted hardship so that his ummah could learn. For the sake of his ummah, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he chose hardship so that his ummah could have an easy life, so that his ummah could follow in the footsteps of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their likes was such that they gained their maqam and their martaba and their status because they saw the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they acted upon the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam because it was the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They saw that these were the actions of my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were the actions of that Nabi who sacrificed everything for me. That this was the Nabi who tied stones to his stomach. This was that Nabi who endured injuries in the battle of Uhud. This was that Nabi who endured the divorce of his daughters. And this was that Nabi who sacrificed everything of his life. He sacrificed and he gave everything. He left no stone unturned for the sake of his ummah. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, many narrations mention that once he was travelling and he reached a certain place and he got off his horse and he went behind a rock. He kneeled down, he squatted and he came back and he continued his journey again. His companion that was travelling with him, he asked, why did you do this? Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma replies, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma replies that I accompanied my Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on a journey, and at this location my Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he stopped here and he had to answer the call of nature. So my Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he went behind this rock and he answered the call of nature here. So as I am coming on this journey, even though I did not need to answer the call of nature, just to act upon the sunnah of my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I got off my horse. I did as my Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, and I carried my journey again. On another occasion, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar, the same Sahabi radiallahu anhu, he is traveling on a journey again, and he reaches a place and he is all clear, and out of the blue he just ducks down and he carries on his journey again. Again he was asked, why did you do this? There was nothing obscuring your way. There was nothing in front of you. He says that I was with Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam on one occasion, and in this location there was a branch in the way, and when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam he was passing, he lowered his head to get through this area. Now the branch has gone and the tree has gone, but just to act upon the sunnah of my Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just to act upon the sunnah of my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I am fulfilling this sunnah of my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was their look for Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this was their look for when they heard that these were the actions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this is what the true lover of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam does. The individual who holds the love of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he hears that this is the sunnah of my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is his status, and this should be his situation, that he hears that this is the sunnah of my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I have to act upon each and every sunnah of my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the night upon night the Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati, Ya Rabbi ummati ummati, night upon night crying for this ummah to such an extent that the Mubarak blessed feet of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam would become swollen, and blisters would form in the foot of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was the extent that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was concerned for us. So the least we can do for Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam today is we act upon the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those sunnahs of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam he left behind. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam he left them behind for a reason for this ummah. And those individuals that love Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will see that they will be the ones who will be acting upon these sunnahs of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Going back to Sunnat Mu'akkadah. Now Sunnat Mu'akkadas are those which we are not allowed to leave on a normal occasion. That we hear there is a sunnah, so we think that we are allowed to leave this. Sunnat Mu'akkadah and Ghair Mu'akkadah. Sunnat Mu'akkadah are those which are emphasized sunnahs. The individual who will leave these without a reason, he will be blameworthy. And if he is leaving them just because it is a sunnah and it is the action of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so he thinks that it's okay, it's not farz or wajib, then that individual will be sinful also. Next are the sunnah ghair mu'akkadah. So those are the non-emphasized sunnahs. So those are those actions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that they did on certain occasions. They may have done a couple of times. Some they might have stopped, and some they might have carried on, but they were not as regular on these actions. So these will come under sunnat ghair mu'akkadah. For example, the four sunnahs before Asr, the four sunnah before Isha, these are sunnat ghair mu'akkadah. So if an individual, if he acts upon these, then he will be rewarded, and he will reach excellence in his namaz. He will reach excellence in his life, because he is acting upon the ways of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if an individual he leaves them out, then there is no blame on him, and he will not be sinful also. But the ulama mentioned that we should try to at least read these like a few times, a couple of times a month, a couple of times a week. When we have the chance, we should try to act upon these sunnahs of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam also. We should not let these sunnahs of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam die down. These are the actions of our Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a link for us to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that these were the things that my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. So we ourselves should try to have this link with the actions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Coming to the Sunan Zawaid. Now Sunan Zawaid, those things which are normal in the life of a human being. So those are things which an individual has to do in his daily life. For example, wearing clothes, the manner of his dressing, eating food, the way he eats, the way he dresses himself, the way he conducts himself with his family. These are things which are normal in a life of a human being. So if an individual will adopt the actions of the Sunan Zawaid, those actions that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, so the manner in which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam dressed himself, the manner in which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam would conduct himself with his family, If an individual will adopt these, then he will reach excellence in his personality, in his character, in his mannerisms in his life. And if an individual was to leave them out, then he will be leaving out a big portion of the characteristics and the mannerisms of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But again, this individual, he will not be blameworthy and he will not be sinful if he does this also. But that individual who will act upon this, he will see barakah in his lifetime, he will see blessings in his life, and he will see that he has reached the excellence in character, in his morals, in his way of life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless his way of life. Next is Mubah. Mubah is the neutral point in between, in the middle. So whatever we mentioned before were the enforcing rulings, those that tell us to obey something and tell us to do something. Mubah is something in the middle. So these are acts which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't require from us, nor are they those things which are prohibited for us to do. These are just neutral actions. For example, sleeping, eating, walking, these are just neutral actions. Nor are they required, nor are they prohibited. These are things which take place in our daily lives. But the ulama mention if an individual was to do these things with the right intention, then he will be rewarded also. Let's take eating for example. If an individual was to eat with the intention that I'm eating to gain energy to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that action which is just mubah, which is permissible in itself, neither is it required nor is it prohibited, then this individual will be rewarded for that also. Sleeping, if an individual sleeps early with the intention that I want to wake up for Fajr Salah, then him sleeping early, he will get reward for this. And if he has the intention that I am sleeping to gain energy and to regain the energy to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the next day, then again for sleeping he will get reward for this also. So these are actions just in the middle. Nor are they required, nor are they prohibited. If an individual acts upon these, he will be rewarded. If an individual doesn't act upon these, there is no harm on him. And if they are done with the right intention, then you will be rewarded also. Now coming on to the opposite side, makruh. Makruh are those things which we have been commanded to leave. Now they themselves fall into two categories. Makruh tahrimi and makruh tanzihi. Makruh tanzihi are somewhat disliked and makruh tahrimi are prohibitively disliked. So tanzihi is the lighter version and tahrimi is the heavier version, is the extremer version of makruh. Makruh tahrimi, tanzihi, first, is that which has been commanded to leave, though it is not sinful to perform, meaning it has not been strictly forbidden. So we have the narrations and the evidences mentioned and give us advice to leave these things out. If they are not left, or if an individual carries on doing them, then he will not be sinful and he will not be blameworthy, but he will miss out on the reward. If an individual was to leave something which is makruh, then he will be rewarded for this. And if he was to carry it on, and if he was to do this, he won't be sinful nor blameworthy, but he will miss out on a chunk of reward. And the actions which he are doing, ulama mentioned, he will lose out a bit of reward for that also. For example, reading Salah with half sleeves on. Reading Salah with half sleeves, and if an individual was to do this, his Salah would be complete. He will be, his namaz will be done. He will not have to repeat this Salah. But if he was to read his Salah with full sleeves on, then he will have reward for that also. This portion of the reward he is missing out on, and he is keeping his Salah, he is lessening his reward in the Salah that he is reading. Next is the makruh tahrimi. Now makruh tahrimi is on the same level as wajib. So it's just the opposite version of wajib. So wajib are those things which command, makruh tahrimi are those things which tell us not to do something. But they are on the same level. So like we mentioned, wajib are those things which have been mentioned from authoritative source, something which is authentic, but the wording that has been used to enforce something has a chance of interpretation. So there is chance for us to interpret something, 2 or 3 meanings in those things. So because of that, they have not been put in the hukum of farz, they have been given the hukum of wajib. Exact same way makruh tahrimi. those are those things which we have been commanded to leave. Those things which we are not allowed to act upon, but the sources that mention these things, they themselves may be authentic, but the words that have been used, there is a chance for interpretation in them. So there's a chance for us to go one way or another. Because of this, these things are makruh tahrimi. They are themselves, we are not allowed to act upon this. Like wajib, we have to stick to and we have to complete the wajibat. The same way we have to act upon and we have to stay away from those things which are makruh tahrimi. So the ruling of makruh tahrimi is that it is necessary to leave that which has been deemed makruh tahrimi. So that thing which has been deemed necessary to leave, which has been deemed makruh tahrimi, is necessary for us and is incumbent on us to leave those things. That individual who does perform a makruh tahrimi act, he will be sinful. And if he denies a makruh tahrimi act, then he will not be out of the fold of Islam, but he will be a fasiq. He will be an open sinner and he will be sinful and deserving of punishment for denying something which is makruh tahrimi. Again, like it was the case for wajib, because it has not come from a source which was absolutely clear. Because there is room for interpretation, then we cannot hold that person accountable, and we cannot say to that person that he is out of the fold of Islam, because there was room for interpretation in that source in itself. Next and the last act is haram, that which has been prohibited through clear sources. So it has been forbidden from a decisively established text. So if the text was qat'i al-thubut and qat'i al-dalala. So the source which mentions to not obey something or stay away from something or forbids that action, that source in itself was absolutely authentic, like the Quran and mutawatir al-hadith. And whatever the words were used and whatever the source mentions, there is no room for interpretation. For example, لا تقربوا الزنا. Do not even come close to adultery, do not come close to zina. There is no room for interpretation there. That verse of the Quran is absolutely authentic and the words which have been used are absolutely clear. There is no room for interpretation. No one can say that this means this or this means that. The meaning of that verse is absolutely clear. So the ruling for haram is same as farz. So to stay away from those things which are haram, those things which are forbidden is compulsory and is necessary for each and every one of us. That individual who will do and he will perform those actions which are haram, he will be deserving of punishment and he will be sinful. And that individual who denies an action of haram, the individual who says that for example, adultery is not forbidden, adultery is allowed, then that individual, he will be out of the fold of Islam, because he is denying aspects of the deen which have come from absolutely authentic sources, and he is denying things from the deen, aspects of the deen which are clear in themselves. So for that reason, that individual, for example, that individual who denies a farz, that individual who denies a haram act, he will be out of the fold of Islam. Those individuals that do not complete a farz act and who do complete haram acts, they will be sinful and they will be deserving of punishments. Wajib, if that individual, he acts upon a wajib, he will be rewarded, and if he misses a wajib out, then he will be sinful. And if he denies a wajib act, he will not be out of the fold of Islam, but he will be an open sinner and a fasiq, and an individual who is deserving of punishment. On the opposite side, we've got makruh tahrimi, which is necessary for us to leave out. And if an individual, he acts upon a makruh tahrimi act, he will be sinful. And if he denies them, he will not be out of the fold of Islam, but he will be classed as a fasiq, an open sinner, and he will be deserving of punishment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to act upon what has been said.